Welcome to this overview of NIFI's newly revised personal finance ecosystem. I'm Mary Hoke, Senior Manager, Insights and Impact at NIFI.
And I'm Dr. Beth Bean, Senior Vice President of Research and Impact.
Together, we'll walk you through NIFI's most recent update to the personal finance ecosystem framework. At a very high level, the ecosystem continues to be a visual roadmap laying out the foundations that underpin an individual's level of financial well-being. It shows how various elements and factors comprise and influence financial well-being, but we are not talking about direct causal links. The ecosystem provides a conceptual framework for understanding the complexity of what it takes to build this financial acuity, including the many components and systemic limitations in play. This version is NIFI's third. You can see the evolution here, which began with the first iteration in early 2019. The goal then was to synthesize observations from research and practice across the financial well-being field and to examine how financial education fits within the broader context. Later that year, with consultation from the field, we launched a second version in the shape of a pyramid. Since then, we've observed how people understand and interact with the visual. We collected extensive evolving feedback, and we even field tested various concepts, graphics, and phrasing with individuals working across the ecosystem. The current version is a culmination of this multi-year process. Every person's financial well-being is influenced by three main factors: foundational factors, which are internal and external factors, such as their general skills and competencies, values and beliefs, and a range of cultural, familial, and socioeconomic factors. Financial knowledge and access, which is their current level of financial knowledge and skill and their access to financial products and services. And financial actions and outcomes, which are the actions they take, including inaction, decisions they make, and the resulting outcomes. Unexpected events also play into this cycle. While the core elements are mostly the same across versions, we made several additions and altered some of the original language, which I'll note as we move through the framework. In this version, it's intentional that financial well-being is in the center. One of the bigger misunderstandings of the pyramid version was a suggestion that financial well-being is a destination. It's very important to note that financial well-being is not a point of arrival. It's an ever-present state experienced by every person that fluctuates over time. Because it's a fluid state that changes, a person does not achieve financial well-being. It does not start or end, and it's self-defined by the individual. We use the example of a pain scale in the doctor's office. Two people experiencing a very similar affliction might score themselves differently based on pain tolerance and any other number of factors. The important thing is that the individual gets to decide how they feel about it. It's the same with financial well-being. Each person gets to say how they feel about their situation and may feel okay despite significant challenges. Financial well-being typically includes things like satisfaction with managing one's current financial situation, the ability to exercise choice and feel some sense of control, and feelings about the future. This is in line with the in-depth work that the CFPB has done surrounding financial well-being. Foundational factors influence every part of the framework and are present for every individual. The particular influence they have depends on a person's unique lived experience. There are a few new updates to the ecosystem within this area. For those familiar with the previous framework, we replaced idiosyncratic factors with values and beliefs and placed them within foundational factors. We elevated family and culture, as well as socioeconomics and geography, to be visually represented on the model. This highlights how important it is to recognize economic inequities and cultural factors at play in people's lives. And we revised some of the phrasing to be more inclusive throughout the framework. One example is seen here, where general skills and competencies replaced general skills and abilities. Here's a look at what is included in each grouping of foundational factors. Note that these factors are broadly categorized for ease of information sharing, but the groups themselves are not consequential as long as we agree that the factors themselves are foundational. We have general skills and competencies, which include things like basic literacy and numeracy, problem-solving skills, and executive function. Values and beliefs include important mental constructs like motivation, affect, attitudes, cognitive bias, time discounting, risk preference, and stress. This version also includes a new factor, which is trust in the financial system. We thought it made sense to move these factors here because many impact a person's willingness to learn in the first place. Family and culture, as mentioned before, is now elevated to be visually prominent in the framework. It's a big one, and it's important to consider that this isn't only about family socialization. It's also about how family composition can affect someone's financial life. For example, is it a multi-generational household? Has an individual experienced divorce? How many children are there? What is their documentation status? And finally, socioeconomics and geography, also new to the visual framework, touches on economic disparities and systemic inequities that people experience. It also acknowledges that many economic opportunities and challenges are place-based and can vary widely by region and even zip code. So financial knowledge and access summarizes the ability for an individual to act in their own financial best interest, which again is self-defined by the individual. It's made up of two parts: financial knowledge and the skill to decide or act, which is how many of us think about financial capability, and the opportunity to take action and exercise choice within financial society. Both are influenced by foundational factors. Financial knowledge is the mastery of financial terms and concepts, and financial skills are a person's ability to make decisions with that knowledge. For example, you may know that a credit score of 800 is good, but at the same time not have the skills needed to increase your own score. So skills are what puts that knowledge into action. Access and inclusion is the opportunity to fully participate and make choices within financial society, which includes financial markets, the financial services industry, and all aspects of financial life. We acknowledge that individuals face numerous barriers to full inclusion, most of which are systemic. The financial actions and outcomes cycle is a feedback loop made up of mindset and available choice set, decisions and actions, and the resulting outcomes from those decisions. These outcomes in turn affect mindset and choice set, and so on. We also highlight unexpected events here, renamed from shocks in the previous version. Not all financial disruptions can be prepared for or are an outflow of financial decisions and actions. Like several other components of the ecosystem, there are some things that an individual cannot change or control, but they still impact the outcomes that a person experiences. Mindset and available choice set are new additions to this version, and they're often closely tied to financial knowledge and access. If you can act in your own financial best interest, your mindset and available choices will likely shift. So mindset is a set of mental attitudes at the time of a financial decision, which then influences the choices that are made. And a choice set describes the choices that are available at any given point in time. It's important to note that not everyone has the same set of choices. For example, someone with a high school diploma is going to have a different set of job opportunities than someone with a graduate degree. Or someone who has a low credit score is not going to have the same set of contract terms when obtaining a loan. Decisions and actions include decisions and actions taken or not taken by an individual, and the resulting outcomes are results from not only decisions and actions, but also those unexpected events. Resulting outcomes can be objective, like a credit score, or subjective, like confidence. And finally, unexpected events are economic shocks that a person experiences. We often think of these as negative, perhaps a large medical bill, job loss, or an unexpected home repair, but they can also be positive. For example, you might take a wage increase or receive a big windfall. As part of the latest updates, an additional layer is included to show the personal finance ecosystem in action. This shows the practical application of the ecosystem framework to a person's lived experience. Using a fictional persona, named Val in this instance, as a case study, we can see that the ecosystem is highly individual and dynamic. Building out scenarios such as this one is a great way to make something that was once abstract into something more actionable. In this scenario, we imagine that Val has been exposed to effective financial education. We just as easily could imagine how Val's personal finance ecosystem might shift if they had received no financial education at all. While we won't dive into this example in depth here, we encourage you to find this layer of the ecosystem, as well as related information on NEFI.org. I'll now hand it over to Dr. Bean to walk us through catalysts for change.
Thank you. As Mary alluded to, the next layer of the personal finance ecosystem is catalysts for change. Catalysts for change have to do with the individuals, organizations, and institutions in our field wishing to increase others' financial well-being. NEFI identified 4 leverage points, each acting on a different part of the personal finance ecosystem, and interventions at these leverage points are collectively termed catalysts for change. These catalysts for change are knowledge influencers, structural policy changes, behavioral influencers, and social and material supports. Because each of these leverage points acts on a different part of the ecosystem, they ultimately impact financial well-being through a different channel. We've expanded the number of catalysts for change in this updated version. In addition to knowledge influencers and behavior influencers, we now include structural policy changes and social and material supports to recognize the range of individuals and organizations helping people to live their best financial lives. You might notice that foundational factors does not have a catalyst for change. Policy and interventions aimed at components of foundational factors are beyond the scope of this framework because they typically do not have the primary end goal of influencing financial well-being, though it can be a byproduct. Catalysts for change, as we've defined them, tend to be explicitly focused on financial well-being. One additional note, you'll notice that research and evaluation have a role to play throughout the ecosystem, which we'll touch on a bit later. The first catalyst for change is knowledge influencers, which act upon financial knowledge and skills. These are a variety of engagements implemented with the purpose of increasing the individual's overall financial knowledge and decision-making skills, or to inform them about a specific narrow topic. There are 2 main types: financial education and financial information and tools, with financial education having higher levels of impact on knowledge and decision-making skills. We've defined financial education as a systemic approach to cultivating financial knowledge and financial decision-making skills. It uses appropriate pedagogy, learning objectives, and assessment techniques. It's also of long enough duration for a learner to incorporate new knowledge into their existing knowledge base. Financial information tools, on the other hand, are smaller dose interventions that on their own do not constitute education, as they lack pedagogy, learning outcomes, and assessment techniques. However, they can and should be used as part of a financial education program or initiative. Differentiating between the two has implications for what the intervention can reasonably achieve. For example, we likely wouldn't expect informational flyers or articles to have the lasting impact of a full semester personal finance course. The next catalyst is structural policy changes. Structural policy changes act upon access and inclusion by increasing participation in the financial environment. Policy absolutely can and should be threaded throughout the entire ecosystem, but for our purposes, we will narrow in on issues of full inclusion in financial society. Because barriers to full participation are largely systemic, these issues must be addressed with fundamental structural change. One example of a policy change is the adoption of rent reporting, which creates new opportunities for people who are previously credit invisible to receive scorable credit reports. In turn, these people have access to a new set of products and services. Next is behavior influencers, which act upon decisions and actions. These are the variety of interventions implemented with the purpose of helping an individual make decisions or cultivate certain behaviors, and include interventions such as just-in-time information or nudges, as well as interventions such as financial coaching or counseling. Behavior influencers and knowledge influencers are distinguished from one another by their intent. Most often, these interventions are trying to influence behaviors rather than check for knowledge gain. As such, behavior influencers may influence knowledge and decision-making skills, but their goal is not explicitly to bolster that element of the individual's experience. For example, a fintech app might nudge someone toward developing a savings habit, while financial capability might increase as a byproduct of using the app. The app's ultimate objective is to influence spending and saving choices at a point of purchase. Finally, social and material supports help change the outcome an individual could experience from specific or unexpected events, sometimes used to alleviate the effect of a financial shock or aid needed to meet basic needs. Social and material supports act as a safety net. These supports can be in the form of a public benefits or services rendered by community organizations. As stated previously, research, evaluation, and policy touch each area of the ecosystem. There's a huge need and a role for research and evaluation to inform each area of the framework. For example, research can be conducted to test relationships and pathways throughout the ecosystem to enhance understanding of various avenues to financial well-being. And evaluation can provide insights into the effectiveness of various catalysts for change and other interventions. And even though we limit the structural policy change catalyst to focus on participation in financial society, other policies can impact each area of the framework. Some examples can include things like K-12 basic education policy affecting foundational factors, which might look like required testing for students' math competency or including metacognition skills in curriculum standards. Another example might be changes to government-funded entitlement programs and need-based programs affecting outcome supports or consumer protections, and other regulations affecting choice sets or available information. For each of the catalysts, the resulting impact on financial well-being depends on both the quality of the intervention and the dosage. Low-quality interventions cannot be expected to have intended knowledge gains or behavior impacts, and small dose and one-time interventions cannot be expected to have the same impact as comprehensive programming. For example, for greatest impact, knowledge influencers should feature materials that are accurate, comprehensive, evaluated, and culturally inclusive. Educators should be trained or qualified, and learning objectives should tie to the content and be appropriately evaluated. And in general, a single workshop or 5-minute video will not have the same impact or engagement as a comprehensive program. Also consider whether the outcome expected matches the intervention. For example, if you're working primarily in the financial knowledge space, is it reasonable to expect significant behavior change? Finally, it's crucial that we contextualize our work within the broader ecosystem. The people we serve all arrive at interventions with their own unique personal finance ecosystem and with a set of factors that may be outside of their control. No one intervention is a silver bullet for achieving financial well-being, including financial education, even if it's delivered perfectly. It'll always be mediated by other elements in the ecosystem. This is why it's important that we come together from a variety of disciplines and areas of the ecosystem. All our work matters when it comes to increasing financial well-being for the people we serve. All this information and more can be found at nefi.org/ecosystem. We encourage you to download and share the PDF, which includes the graphic and an in-depth narrative explanation of what we covered today, along with ideas of how you might use the ecosystem in your work. We also encourage you to look around our website, especially if you want to consider the personal finance ecosystem in action or are curious about the evolution of the personal finance ecosystem and how we arrived at this version. And after absorbing this information, we encourage you to reflect on where you fit within the ecosystem and how you can apply the framework to your own efforts. It is our hope that the personal finance ecosystem starts a field-wide discussion about some of these topics and helps you all consider a larger, more complete view of the lived experiences and resulting financial well-being of each individual we serve. That concludes this overview. We hope this information has been helpful. You can find more about NEFI, the ecosystem, and other initiatives at nefi.org. Thank you.